How do we realize our unique self? How do we realize that we are a unique expression of the entire field of reality, and that there is no one that ever was, is, or will be ever again that has this unique perspective of reality, this unique quality of being, this set of gifts that are meant to be given to the rest of the world and all of reality? How do we realize this? What's a path to realize this? How do we realize this radical aliveness that is at the very fabric of the cellular structure in our being? So in this brief video, I'd like to share a path to unique self that utilizes unique self theory and combines it with ego development, research, and the practice of polarity mapping or polarity management. And so I'm going to share that we basically have three major phases that in order to realize our unique self, we actually have to pass through them, and we have to kind of return to them frequently, and to make sure that the spiral of this evolutionary impulse, evolutionary process, is sort of adjusted and integrated and healed to be really fully radically alive. So just the first, main principle I want to share is that we need an ego, right? The ego is meant to be here. It's not a mistake. It's not merely an illusion. It is part of the intention of reality that we have an ego. And so we need to develop the ego. So that's going to be the first phase, called developing the ego. And then the second phase is called transcending the ego. That's when we actually let go of the grip of the ego and realize that we're one with the true self. We're one with the nature of reality, that the whole universe is present right now, right? That's the second phase. And the third phase is, I'm calling it befriending the ego. And that's when we truly re-inhabit our sense of individuality, but this time as unique self. So let's go through these steps here and now. And so for each of the phases, I'm going to be talking about stages that we go through in our growth, and that at each stage, there are kind of levers or leverage points that we call polarities. And polarities are two opposites, two opposing tendencies that are actually not contradictory. They're both needed in order for the whole system to grow and to continue to evolve. And so we need to embrace both polarities in order to continue to evolve within ourselves and integrate ourselves and become truly, realizing our greatest fulfillment as unique selves. So let's start at the first phase, which is called developing the ego. This is where we actually strengthen the ego. We develop its capacities in the world. And there's 4 stages in this phase. And it starts when we're a baby, right? The first stage is called the self-centric stage. In the self-centric stage, it comes online as early as 2 years old, right? The terrible twos, we think about that. But what that is all about is getting and defending for myself. So it's all about impulsively wanting to fulfill my needs, right? And so as I go through each of these stages, feel into your own stage of self-centric realization within yourself, because we actually need all of these stages to get to unique self. So feel into the impulse to get what you want now. And sometimes it's as easy as just, what is my gut wanting, right? Food, shelter, clothing, the very basic raw necessities of life. And if we skip any of these stages, we're going to feel pathologies. We're going to feel shadows. We're going to be lashing out in ways that are actually destructive to the world around us. Right? So it's super important to be really conscious of and connected to these stages within ourselves. So the self-centric stage, it's all about my needs, getting my needs met right now. Right? Now, if we only focus on our own needs, if I only focus on my needs, I actually won't survive, because we're inherently, we need other people to survive. And so there's the polarity of getting needs is there's my needs and then there's other people's needs, right? So when I expand and realize that, wait a minute, other people's needs actually are essential for them to get those so that I'm surviving, but also there's something valuable about really helping other people achieve their needs or get their needs met, right? And so we're able, when we integrate this polarity within ourselves, we expand to the next stage, which is called the group-centric stage. And the group-centric stage is all about conforming and belonging to a group, right? So now it's not just about me, it's about us. And so feel into your conforming, your belonging to groups. Do you belong? Do you feel like you have a place where you belong? And if you don't, then just feel into that and maybe jot that down and then later come back and ask yourself, well, how can I get that need met? How can I get the belonging need met? Where can I find my people, right? So at this group-centric stage, where belonging is super important. We are the group. I am the group, right? So maybe it's a sports team or a social club or a larger family or a nation or a religious group or church, right? Or a special interest that you have. Maybe there's people that you feel that with. So that's the group-centric stage. Now, if we're only focused on conforming to the group, we're actually missing something out. So we conform to the group, but then what we're missing is, wait a minute, we start to feel like, wait, what about me? What can I offer the group? What can I contribute? So the other pole of this polarity is not just conforming to the group, but also asserting in the group. So asserting myself, asserting my differentiation, asserting my opinion, asserting my skills, asserting my unique contribution, right? So when we're able to embrace that other side of the polarity, we start to realize, wait a minute, I have something to offer here. I'm different in a certain way. And we expand and grow to feel the next stage, which is called the skill-centric stage of ego development. And the skill-centric stage, that's where it's all about perfecting and comparing. So we focus on, well, what am I good at? What am I specializing in? What am I known for? What am I recognized for? And whatever that is, I'm going to excel at that particular area. I'm going to master that expertise, right? I'm going to get really good at that one thing. So maybe it's sports, maybe it's um, maybe it's writing, or maybe it's accounting or sales in a particular company. What if it's a technical, engineering skill, or maybe it's mothering, or um, healing. Maybe we're a healer and expertise is our healing, right? Whatever it is. So the skill-centric stage actually solidifies a certain kind of knowing. Like, I know what I'm doing here, right? So feel into your own expertise, your own skillfulness at something, something that you can be recognized for, something that you're known for, something that you yourself know, right? Feel into that. And if you don't have anything, well, jot that down and afterwards go back and brainstorm, like, how can I, bolster something that I can be known for? How can I specialize and get really good at one thing that's needed or useful in the world? Something practical, maybe, right? So that's the skill-centric stage. And so, but the thing about this stage is that if it's all about me knowing and being capable of something, it's actually very narrow, right? I might be so fixated on this one area and I ignore everything else, right? So there's knowing that becomes stifling, it becomes limited, it becomes restricted, and has lots of blind spots, right? So when we have the knowing side of the polarity, we actually have to embrace the opposite, which is a reflecting side or an inquiring side. So when we start to ask questions, be like, wait a minute, what do I really want here? What's the goal? Not just what am I good at, but what are we trying to achieve, right? And how do we really get there? What's the best way? What's the most effective thing we can do to achieve that? Right? And when we embrace that other side of the pole, we expand and we start to grow into what's called the next stage, which is called self-determining. And the self-determining stage is where it's all about analyzing and achieving. So we take a little bit of a step back and say, wait a minute here, what do I want to achieve? Right? And what's the best way I can find to get there? Right? There's an energy, there's a power, there's a purpose here. Like, oh yes, I can make something happen. I can change my life. I can, make money. I can, get, transform my health. I can invent something or create a new initiative or really innovate in a certain area. Achieve something, right? Make a big change in your life, right? So feel into that kind of that future orientation, that excitement about what I can create, what I can make happen, right? And if you don't have that, jot it down and ask yourself, well, how can I achieve something in my life? How can I achieve something that's really useful and impactful? What is that? And think of it in terms of what do you want, right? What do you want to achieve? What gets you excitement? What makes you feel like like that's who you are, right? So this is the self-determining stage. It's a lot of future orientation. And so this is a stage where it's kind of the pinnacle of our ego. It's the pinnacle of our capacity to be agents in the world, to make things happen, right? Now there's limitations to that because when we're so focused on the future, we actually miss out on the now. We miss out on life. We miss out on what's actually happening. We sometimes are so fantasizing about the next moment, the next thing I can get done, we actually bring violence to our own body. Mind over matter sometimes, mind over body. What ends up happening is we deny what we really need because we're trying to pursue something that we want, right? We also may commit violence against other people because we don't actually stop and pause and listen and feel what's really going on with someone else, right? Or we don't take time to imagine and understand and become closer to nature and commune with the broader biosphere. We just are so locked in our own vision of what reality needs to be according to our perspective, right? So the limitations of the self-determining stage, when they start to reveal themselves, then our ego starts to get shaky, right? Our ego gets shaky. And at some point, when we feel like we've worked so hard and tried to achieve so much, we might wake up in the morning and realize how powerless we really are. We might wake up in the morning and ask ourselves, is this really what I want? Is this really what matters? And so this is where we start to move into the next phase, where we transcend the ego. This is where we move to what we call true self. This is where we start to simply slow down, quiet the chattering mind, pause our incessant need to achieve and to get things done, and just rest in the moment. Suddenly, we start to dwell in the questions. We start to ask so many questions. We learn for the sake of learning, not to get somewhere, but just because it's interesting to learn. We reflect not to strategically get to another goal, we reflect just to go deeper into what's real, what's present, what's alive. And it's a beautiful feeling, actually. So feel into that right now. Feel into just what it's like to be alive. Feel into just the delightful pleasure and the bliss of being. No purpose, nowhere to get to. Just breathing, right? And when we're in this stage, we may start to feel emotions come up. And we may start to look into them and see where they come from. Maybe they came from my early childhood. Maybe they came from a particular trauma that I experienced when I was a kid. And we start to kind of bring healing. We can bring healing to the wholeness of our being. We may be more sensitive and attuned to the impact that we have on other people and on the ecosystem or on the biosphere. We might start to reorganize our life just to be in alignment and in harmony with the world around us. Here we also start to realize, wait a minute, all this is happening from my perspective. And who am I to impose my perspective on anyone else? It's just my perspective. It's my life, and that's your life, and that's your life, and there's an infinite number of perspectives in reality. Okay, so this is actually where we start to realize, oh, but there is my perspective, and there is, it seems to me like there are needs and there's desires that actually have dignity in these perspectives, that there's something that's happening, that there's a universal quality to perspectives, and that perspectives evolve, perspectives grow. Certain perspectives are more inclusive than others. There are certain things that are more true than others, more good than others, more beautiful than others. And so this self-questioning stage, when we're transcending the ego, it's a beautiful space. And if we only rest in this present, in this self-questioning stage, we actually lose out on something. We actually disconnect ultimately from the world, from my own needs and my desires, my own self in the world. We actually lose touch with that because we're so open to transcending the self and letting go that we risk actually losing touch with reality. And so the polarity here we work with is, on one hand, we're being, right? We're being just who we are. But if we're not careful, we miss out on the other pole. And the other pole is becoming, right? So not just who am I, but who am I becoming? What is mine to do? Where are my greatest gifts needed for the greatest good to fulfill the greatest needs around me in the world? So this is where we transition to the next stage, the next phase, which is befriending the ego. Because again, we realize that we need the ego. We need the self, and it's actually intended, and it's part of reality. It's what matters. And this moves us into the stage, what we call the self-actualizing stage. When we re-embrace the self, we re-embrace the self's direction. That, no, wait a minute, it's not just endless curiosity and endless learning and endless letting go. I have a purpose here. Now the purpose evolves, and the purpose I need to discern and clarify what it is over time. But I do have a purpose. That I have, yes, I have a perspective here, and there's so many perspectives, but this is my perspective, and this perspective wants to be lived. That reality is having this unique experience as my individuated body-mind. This is what we call unique self. This is your unique self. This is your unique being and becoming in the world. This is the unique way that you and I show up, the unique presence that we have with other people, the unique quality of what Marc Gafni says a lot of times, living, laughing, and loving. You have a unique poem to write. You have a unique song to sing. You have a unique capacity. You have a unique responsibility, ability to respond that no one that ever was, is, or will be ever again can have except you. And so feel into this quality of being your unique self, of having something to actualize, to have a destiny. Now again, it's not a preordained plan, or it's evolving, right? It's always evolving. And our entire life needs to continue. It's a dynamic process, right? That continues to unfold. But there is a direction, and there is a path, and there is something that you have to give and that I have to give. Feel that. You feel that. It's not just, it's not the same as the earlier developing the ego phase where we had the self-centric, it's all about me, I don't care about you. The group-centric, it's all about we, I don't care about anything else. The skill-centric, it's all about how I can master and get better at something that I'm good at, but who cares the bigger picture? And it's also not the self-determining stage, which is about achieving something that I want, right? All those are developing the ego's capacities, but it's only when the ego yields to the true self, or the field of consciousness, or the interconnected field of reality. It's only when the ego actually realizes it's not separate, but it's inextricably linked and connected with the field of all of reality, that we can finally wake up in the morning, show up to live the fullest life possible, and experience the aliveness that comes from giving your unique gift, giving my unique gift, for the sake of something larger, for the sake of fulfilling that unique puzzle piece that is yours to fulfill, that completes the puzzle. So this has been a little bit of a journey, and I hope you found that each stage you're able to kind of tweak things so that you feel a more integrated picture of who it is that you are. Because this is the most exciting, important, significant thing you could ever do, is realize who you are. And so I wish you the best on your journey, and continue growing. Continue developing the ego, continue transcending the ego, and continue befriending the ego.